Oh boy, this was a pain in the ass, but I finally did it. I put together a list of the top 10 cards in Commander. This is just my opinion. You don't have to agree with me, but as someone with experience playing Commander, I feel that I have a pretty decent understanding of the cards, what makes the format great, uh, basic staples, just great cards that should be in every single deck within the colors, within reason too. But if your deck is playing the colors of these cards, you're most likely going to at least consider playing these cards. These see a huge percentage of play in the format. They're format staples. So let's get started. Number 10, I have Swords to Plowshares. Now, this one was probably the most difficult one for me to choose because there's obviously the runner-up here, which is Path to Exile. The only difference, the only thing giving Swords to Plowshares any edge here is the fact that life doesn't really matter as much in Commander as opposed to Modern, where Path to Exile sees a ton of play, which is why Path to Exile is also more expensive money-wise. But Swords to Plowshares is, again, it can be subjective at times why someone would choose Path over Swords, but for the most part, Swords is usually a better option. Why? Well, because too many decks, I should say, benefit from lands. In this format, we have Omnath Locus of Rage, we have the Gitrog monster. Too many decks benefit from it. Also, you don't want to give your opponent any real advantage that matters that much. Life doesn't matter that much in Commander. But yeah, everybody, for the most part, they try to ramp up really quick anyway. So if you're giving them a land early on, that's going to be a significant advantage to them. So I would rather Swords to Plowshares, and that's why it's number 10 for me. Number 9 is the best removal spell in the format, period. I don't care what anyone says. This is most likely going to win you the game when you cast it, and it's the highest ranked removal spell for me. It is Cyclonic Rift. It is blue, so when you consider the fact that blue doesn't have that much removal, and you see that it has the best removal spell in the format, any deck at all that is playing blue needs to play Cyclonic Rift. No exceptions. If you're playing blue, even if it's 5 color, 4 color, you need to play Cyclonic Rift. If you're not, your deck doesn't have optimal removal. And you can't complain about getting overrun by creatures, getting overrun by your opponent's artifacts, combos, and everything. You can't complain about that if you're not playing the removal accordingly. And Cyclonic Rift is the best in blue. And it's honestly the best in the entire format. Number 8 is Sylvan Library. Now, just to warn you, a lot of this list is going to be about consistency. It's going to be about how quickly can I get off to a good start? How can I set myself up to win? It's not the cards that win you the game that matter. It's the cards that allow you to win the game that really matter. You can play all these busted cards you want to. If you don't have the mana ramp, if you don't have the card draw to get to them, what's the point? So Sylvan Library is definitely on this list because so many green decks benefit from it. It's the best card draw in the colors, easily. It fits into every single green deck. Now, granted, just because it fits in every single green deck doesn't mean that some decks like Sultai, Bant don't have better options. Of course, blue, if you have blue card draw, you're definitely going to play it over Sylvan Library. If you have that decision to make, you're definitely going to cut it in favor of a better blue draw spell or a black draw spell. But again, Sylvan Library, so good for the card advantage to the point where most green decks are considering it at the very least. It is just that awesome. Number 7 is Yog Moss Will. This card is easily the most underrated and undervalued card in Commander, to the point where you see tons of players who are playing black that aren't playing it. And the misconception here is that you have to be running a huge graveyard-based deck, or you have to be running a huge combo deck. You don't have to be. It's great recursion. You have one of the only cards in the format that allows you to get whatever you want back from your graveyard and cast it. Most cards that do this in black only touch creatures or artifacts. Like Beacon of Unrest only touches creatures and artifacts. This hits anything from your graveyard. anything you want, you can get it. Very useful in storm decks. It's useful in so many different combos, and especially graveyard based decks, but it dominates, and it's on the reserve list. It's a great card in Vintage. It is epic. So not only do you get to play a lot of cards, but you get to play them again. I mean, not a lot of cards allow you to do that. It's one of the best black spells ever made, so of course it's going to be on this list. Number 6 is Ristic Study, and I don't think I have to do too much explaining. I've already said this with Sylvan Library, although I do believe Ristic Study is a far superior card to Sylvan Library. It frustrates your opponents to a degree, but not too much so that it feels oppressive. They have every opportunity, for the most part, to pay extra mana to keep you from drawing the card. It keeps them in check, it makes them think, and it also keeps you on your toes too, because you have to always make sure that you're, hey, you have to pay an extra mana, hey, you have to do this, or you let me draw a card. Yes, that can be a pain in the ass to keep on top of, but it's definitely worth it. You have a ton of card draw and potential here with Ristic Study, and it should be in every single blue deck, 5-color decks, anything. If you're playing blue, you have to play Ristic Study. If you're not, I don't know what the hell you're doing. You need to reevaluate your life. So number 5 is Sensei's Divining Top. For every single reason why I said Ristic Study and Sylvan Library, Sensei's fits into even more decks for card draw reasons. I think this should go into every single commander deck, just my opinion, but again, I back it up with the fact that every single deck I put this in, I always get good card draw. I always get the cards I want. Why? Because every single one of my opponent's end steps, I use the ability and I get to see, oh, I don't want to draw another land. That's a dead draw. Why not play it? It's only 1 mana. It's a colorless artifact, so it fits into every single deck. It's worth it, and the price is much lower now ever since the reprinting in Eternal Masters, so go for it, buddy. And also, another good card would be Scroll Rack. I think it's a little bit more narrow. It doesn't fit into every single deck. It's more specific towards combos and decks that function with the top cards of their library, much like Narset and Mael the Anima. But for every other deck, Sensei's is usually the better option, and that's why it's number 5. Number 4 is Vampiric Tutor, and this card and the next card in front of it are pretty much one of the biggest debates here when we talk about black cards, and it is, what is better, Vampiric Tutor? Is it good because it's instant speed, it's only 1 mana, or number 3, which is Demonic Tutor, 2 mana to get the card right to your hand. Now, there's a lot of debate here. Oh, you have to wait if you use Vampiric Tutor, and then other people say, oh no, you can just do it at their end step so you get it the first card you draw. Me personally, I like Demonic Tutor better, but again, Vampiric Tutor, it's a little bit of an edge I give to Demonic Tutor. It's the smallest edge possible, but it is still there, and I definitely go with Demonic Tutor. But these are definitely, if you're playing black at all, these two have to be in your deck, or else it's not as good as it could be. It's just, you have to play them. Consistency, card draw are awesome, but if you can get the card you absolutely want, that means the world to you in any game. Now, number 2 and number 1 are just as close, but I feel number 2, for a reason, Sol Ring. It's 1 mana. People complain about it all the time, especially when they don't get it on their first turns. But it's the best turn 1 play. It's the most consistent turn 1 play. We see it all the time. You Sol Ring, or you play your land, you get the Sol Ring, and then you play like a Lightning Greaves or a Signet or whatever. You're ramping up efficiently now. Your turn 1, you suddenly have 4 mana, 5 mana to work with your next turn. I mean, it's very difficult to compete with that, except for the number 1 choice, which pretty easy for me. I went with Mana Crypt. I just don't think there's any card that beats it out. Honestly, I think 0 mana for 2 mana, and yeah, you get the downside of it. It could potentially deal damage to you, your upkeep, but who gives a shit? Like I said before, it doesn't hurt you to lose a little bit of life. Same reasoning as to why Swords to Plowshares is a better card in Commander than it is in Modern. Life doesn't matter as much in EDH in Commander. Mana Crypt is always going to be the better version of Sol Ring. It's always going to be there. People will always prefer the quicker start. And as quick and as annoying people complain about Sol Ring, Mana Crypt is even quicker. It's more efficient. You don't have to feel like, oh, if I don't play Sol Ring turn 1, you don't have that problem with Mana Crypt. You don't feel like you can wait with Mana Crypt and play it your second turn, and you're not setting yourself back 1 mana. A lot of people say, oh, you're ramping up 2 mana with Sol Ring. No, you're paying 1 mana for Sol Ring, and you're technically only ramping up 1 mana that turn. You are getting 2 mana your next turn, but with Mana Crypt, you don't have to wait. You get the 2 mana whenever you want it. That's a significant difference here, and it's one that I emphasize to anyone who says Sol Ring's better just because it costs cheaper money-wise. Mana Crypt is only around $50 to $55 last time I checked, and again, it's definitely worth the money. It's the best card in Commander easily. If you don't agree with my list, please give me any suggestions. I would love to hear feedback. But anyway, if you like my content, I have other top 10 lists as well. I have 2 others, I believe. I have one for Pauper cards as well. I have a whole bunch of other content. I do deck techs. I do rants. I love doing rants. I fucking love that shit. So check out my other videos. Like, subscribe, share. I'm signing off. Thanks for watching.